Hey guys, it's Biggs. Sorry for the low energy today. I know it's very uncommon, but today, disaster struck. Something, honestly, it's never happened to me in 40 plus years of fish keeping, but it happened to me now. And I figured it needed to be said. We need to have a message about it. It's something I've advocated for years, and it's something I've always normally done. And it's not pertaining to the tank behind me. It's about something else. So let's get into it. So you're probably wondering why I'm showing you this murky, super cloudy tank. Actually, this tank has no problem with it whatsoever. It's that reason for a purpose. And basically what it is we just installed that background. You guys might have seen that video. Well, that video's coming up. I don't really even know. But basically what's happened is I've installed that background, and because it's made out of cement, it has to kind of be what I call water cured. And this is filled first with well water. My well water is fairly hard and it has lots of iron and things to it, so I don't really generally use my well water for a lot of stuff. But for this purpose, it's good. And basically what it's doing is that water is sitting there soaking that background, completely submerged. Normally it has air running. You can see the air lines, and I have the water circulating through it and stuff. That's just going to leach out a lot of that extra lime component that would greatly affect the water chemistry of the aquarium. But this tank had a very, very set purpose. This aquarium is supposed to be representative of the Congo River system. And we have very specific fish planned for this tank, which I've probably talked about before. All right, well, this is the tank. You guys remember this tank? Looks like garbage right now. We're gonna get into that in a second, but this is my 75-gallon Congo aquarium. It's very, very compact. It's basically, this has been a holding tank for certain fish getting ready for that bigger project, that 160-gallon project. And it's taken a lot longer than expected. So this one's kind of sitting out in the middle of all the carnage of my family room with all the other crap in the fish room and everything, all the stuff needed for building, and everything's going in there slowly but surely. But this tank was the one that would house those incredibly cherished, super near and dear to me, Steatocranius casuarius, the buffalo heads. So the link to the video where the buffaloes roam, you guys know exactly which ones I'm talking about. So today's been a pretty tough day. What I did is I had the opportunity before that tank was ready to acquire some incredibly important fish that were intended for that tank to be the other denizens in that tank with the buffalo heads. And I broke my own rule. And I broke my own rule and I got punished for it. I got slapped hard. I got the hardest slap possible for what I did. And I cost fish, a lot of fish lives. I'm a fish killer. It's totally my fault. Nobody else's fault, Biggs' fault. What happened is my dear friend, Mr. Oliver Lucanis, over at Below Water, he acquired some fish that have not been available whatsoever to Canada for the longest period of time during the past 2 years, and everybody knows what's been going on. But to actually acquire fish directly out of the Congo, some really unique stuff, has been an incredible challenge. Not alone just acquiring it, actually being able to move it within the country. And he was able to get for me some super awesome fish. So you'll notice there's a couple of little silverfish in here. Those are the ones that started breaking down first. I think he sent me about 30 of this really cool, unique kerosene from Africa. It used to be one of the Phenacogrammus types, which you would recognize. Phenacogrammus interruptus is the common Congo tetra, and it's often the one that is often used in West African aquariums. But because Oliver Lucanis has been to this region of the Congo multiple times, I wanted this tank, the 160-gallon that we're building, to be a lot more authentic and specialized. So he hooked me up. He hooked me up big time with some really, really awesome fish. And then we're going to have the tank set up and running. And then me and him are going to do a couple of videos together discussing the habitats and the fish. And it was all going to be this big, nice parcel. We're still going that route. It's just going to be a little bit longer road for us. But the sadness is I only have maybe half a dozen fish alive in this tank now. I lost all of the really, really cool stuff that he sent me because they were a little bit, I guess, a little bit more sensitive to what happened. But I also lost my treasured, near and dear to me buffalo heads. And that's been a tough one. So I do see that there is a couple of offspring from the buffalo heads still in here. I do see some of the oddball Montezuma swords still in here. And my pleco survived. Of course it did. My bristlenose pleco. But that's about it. Now, why, you know, Biggs, why are you telling us this sad story? It happens to all of us. Well, this was some really, really rare, really, really rarely available fish. They could be extremely, extremely pricey at retail. Oliver pulled out all the stops and really hooked me up. And I didn't quarantine any of these fish. Now, none of these problems are Oliver's fault whatsoever. They are 100% on me. And I didn't quarantine them. This is the first and only time that I haven't actually had a tank dedicated for quarantining, because all the stuff that's happening in the room and all the changes and everything like that. And I paid for it. So these are some of the most cherished fish that I had acquired. Sorry, there's all sorts of duckweed and whatnot, but it was a pretty emotional day. And I know there's still more in the tank. I just haven't finished. But there's my monster. There's one of the females. There's my other big dominant male. So I lost both of my pairs of those. And I know in the tank already, you know, there's another one there. I know they're all dead. It's just a matter of finding them in all this absolute tangle of stuff. Just absolutely heartbreaking for me. I don't like losing any fish. But certain fish, all of you have always had one fish particularly that really, really rings true. And losing them is one of the hardest things, like you've lost a family member. Well, these particular buffalo heads, I know nobody wants to see dead fish, but these ones here, these aren't just buffalo heads, as you guys have seen in the story. These are actually descendants of my fry that were given to a dear friend that grew them up and stuff. So I'm going to try my darndest to try and locate some more of those, of their offspring. But as for these elephant nose, these muramids, these are double elephant nose. I'll put the Latin name up here. Oliver has more of these for me. He's put them aside. And we got more of the cherished, and he has a couple of species of buffalo heads as well. So what are we going to do? Well, this tank here is going to be cleaned up really, really well. As soon as I know, so I can kind of have an assessment of what's left in the tank, we're going to clean it up really, really well, get the water quality back on point, make sure everything's good, and whatever survived, we're going to keep and give it its absolute best. Remember, I said there's literally 2 canister filters running on this tank, and they're big Eheim canisters. There's one there, and there's another one there, and then we got the hydro fan, and we're at that warm temperature. So that's part 1. Part 2 is this tank here, in about 2 weeks' time, should be ready to go. Basically, I've got the gravel already. It's a matter of just hooking up the filter. The filter goes there. I got to do it's basically the same idea as this one here. I'm going to take some of the media out of this one, reestablish that one there. I'm going to take one of the canister filters, or both the canister filters, move them over. Biologically, this tank will be sound, ready to go. I've just got to run the plumbing, which is from here. I've just got to run it down and join it into the drain. But I can do that whole thing in about an hour. That one's ready to go. We're just leaching the mineral, the lime out of that content, the hardness out of that content, just getting that stuff stabilized. That's just the thing that takes a bit of time. So that's part 1. Number 2 is right there. And that's the thing that Biggs has always preached about, is quarantine, quarantine, quarantine. Now that spot there, I can fit 2 of those tanks. And I happen to have 4 of them left over from the previous fish room. The only problem being is they are exceedingly long. These are like a 30 breeder. They were custom made for a certain height for me so I could have them all on a rack. But underneath there, I think they'll work very, very well. I'm just going to go and see my good buddy Spencer Jack and get some Hamburg matte filters cut for them. And maybe I'll put a real thick Hamburg matte filter at the back, like a good 4-inch one or something. And maybe I could even move it up a bit forward, depending on the fish that go in there. I know that this one will be a little bit easier in the fact that I can also still access it completely from the side. But, and I've got power and everything behind there. And otherwise, that space is an unused space. I did not have a plan for that space. But I did know that I definitely wanted to find a way to have quarantine tanks somewhere in the room. But I originally planned that they were probably going to be in the laundry room over there. And I just didn't know where. In the laundry room now, we've got the water and the greenhouse and all that other stuff changes. So basically that spot's taken. This spot's got a whole new super cool thing coming planned for it. This is taken, this is taken, this is taken, this is taken, the wall's taken. And that brings us over here. Cool stuff happening back there. You can't even see that yet. And that's taken. There's really no more space bigs. So that's basically what we're going to do. We're putting our quarantine tanks that we're going to get at least one set up for now, possibly two, and we're going to avoid problems like that ever happening again. Maybe we got to take a step back every once in a while and kind of reevaluate and what's more important. And every single animal that is here, be it a fish, an isopod, a cricket, a snake, a tarantula, it doesn't really matter. The animal's here, it's in my care. That means I have a responsibility for give that animal its absolute best. And I failed these fishes, and that won't happen again. But these fish were pretty darn important to me. They deserved better. They deserved a quarantine tank. And I'm an aquarist, and I did not do it. And they died needlessly. So I'm going to make certain that that never happens again. So, thank you kindly for watching, my friends. Till next time, take care.